This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. This is the Fast Break Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Anderson. Alongside me, as always, is Ricky Widmer.
What's up, guys?
And Dave Oster.
Hey, everybody.
And today, we are jumping into our positional rankings, the first edition. We got the point guards for the 2018-2019 season. It's going to take a while to get used to saying that. We'll be taking our rankings of the starting point guard, one from every team, because there's only one starting point guard for every team, and ranking them 30 to number one. If this is your first time joining us for these, welcome. We usually have a lot of people in the comments pissed off that we didn't put someone higher, or we didn't even have the right point guard at the right spot. So just
that
get
guy's
ready.
a center.
Yeah.
Like, how do we not know that?
We blame Real GM. So if we're wrong, it's not us, it's Real GM.
But we didn't use them this year.
They don't know
It's our
that.
scapegoat. Before we jump into the rankings, though, we do have some housekeeping for you. It's been a while since I've done this, so if I screw it up, just let me know. But check out mostvaluablepodcast.com. You don't want to miss any of the things we post, from our NFL predictions that are coming out, from full podcasts to segments. You can find all that on mostvaluablepodcast.com. Also, rate us 5 stars on iTunes, the Fast Break Podcast, the Onside Kick, the Primetime Podcast, and the Rick and Johnny Podcast. Dave's laughing like a child for some reason.
I hit the table.
He hit underneath the table with his fist.
Way to go, Dave. But please rate us 5 stars on iTunes. It means us an absolute ton. It helps us out, helps us grow, and it really does give us that extra push that we need to become bigger, so we can afford a better, more cameras, so we can get better angles for you guys, so it's more interesting to watch. Even the little things, just like rating us 5 stars on iTunes, means a ton. If you do want to help us out financially, check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. Please don't feel obligated to do so, but we do have some great perks that are worth your money. We have the $10 tier. We have a patron come on monthly, and they talk about the topic they want. We're going to have Jake on. I know he might want to be talking GOAT this month, and we're getting into that.
We'll see where that's
LeBron versus Michael Jordan, so we'll talk about that. And that's his idea. So we'll see. He's still mulling around. But if you do want to be like a patron like Jake or Ziani or Bill, check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast, and that's it.
Yeah, I think you did.
Yeah.
You got iTunes, you got the website, you got the
buy
Patreon,
shirts.
and then the shirt.
All right, cool. All right. Let's jump into our rankings. How we do it. We're going 30 through 21 on YouTube, then 20 through 11, and then we are doing 10 to 1. If you're listening on Blog Talk or iTunes Radio or Stitcher, you are just able to listen to the whole podcast, and that doesn't matter to you, but we are going to at least break them up into those 10. So, Ricky, we are going to jump in. I feel like we're going to do the mock draft. I keep wanting to go to you to read your list. But
no,
what we did
it's
was,
just you now.
Yeah, we made our list, our own personal list, ranked them 30 through 1, assigned those spots a number value. So if you were ranked number 1 in our list, you got 30 points. If you were ranked 30, you got 1 point. And then we put that all together and made one giant list. So let's jump into it. At number 30, the worst point guard in our mind, the worst starting point guard in our mind for the 2018-2019 season is for the Orlando Magic, and it's DJ Augustine. Then the New Orleans Pelicans, recent signing, and Elfrid Payton at 29. At 28, Brandon Knight of the Phoenix Suns, coming off injuries. Then at 27, the sophomore point guard for the New York Knicks, Frank Nikitalina. Then 26, the rookie point guard for the Cleveland Cavaliers, Colin Sexton. Then at 25, we have Trae Young of the Atlanta Hawks. Then at 24, we have the sophomore Sacramento Kings guard, De'Aaron Fox. Then at 23, we have journeyman Pat Bev for the Los Angeles Clippers. Then at 22, we have the sophomore guard, Dennis Smith Jr. of the Dallas Mavericks. And at 21, we have, of the San Antonio Spurs, DeJounte Murray. Now, what I want to open up with is the rookies. We got Colin Sexton, we got Trae Young. I have consistently said that Colin Sexton will be a better pro than Trae Young. I understood why Trae Young went before him, because he does have that boomer bust expectation, but I think Colin Sexton's going to be more of a solid pro, and that reflected in my rankings. I had Colin Sexton at 26, and I had Trae Young at 27. However, Ricky, you had Colin Sexton all the way up at 22, and you had Trae Young at 21. You had the rookies the highest out of all of us. Why did you have the rookies that high?
Well, I mean, for me, if you guys have listened to the podcast, I love the rookies coming out of every single draft. It was last year I was the highest on Lonzo. I'm like, screw it. He's in the top 10 for my point guards just because I can do so. But for me, like, I think the situation with this year is notice how I have them back to back. To where, yes, personally, I like Trae Young better. I think he's going to develop this season, and at the end of the year will be the better point guard for the Hawks than Colin Sexton will be. But right away, day one, I think we're going to look at it and go, man, why didn't the Hawks go with Colin Sexton? He looks like such a better point guard than Trae Young, because Trae Young, even in Summer League, showed that there are some things he still needs to work on in making the right decisions and kind of getting into the flow of an NBA game compared to a college game.
Mike got turned off there for a second. That's why there was a weird jump cut. But Dave, you also had Trae Young above Colin Sexton. You had Trae Young, though, a little bit lower than Ricky. Ricky had him at 21 and 22. Like I said, you had Trae Young at 26 and Colin Sexton at 28. What are your thoughts on what Ricky said? And again, do you agree on that's the reasoning why you have Trae Young over Colin Sexton?
Yeah, I think Trae Young just looks like he will be a more rounded point guard than Colin Sexton, and especially coming out of college. What we saw is Sexton obviously can drive to the hole aggressively and finish. He's got a very physical form, and he knows how to use that to his advantage. But even in Summer League, where we saw Trae Young struggle with the fact that there's 17 seconds on the shooting clock or on the shot clock, and he is just jacking up shots from the logo, that he's got to fix that. But I think that's more of a coaching thing, where as you get into a system where you got players around who are better players, because again, Summer League's a bunch of young kids just playing. I think that he is going to really, really fit nicely on that Atlanta Hawks team, and the ability to pass the ball is paramount to me.
Yeah, and one thing is that Trae Young easily beats him in shooting and passing. There's no doubt about that. And Trae Young, again, we show the negatives of Trae Young Summer League. They're obviously what were some, but he also bounced back in Las Vegas and was fantastic in most of those games in Las Vegas. So we do have to give him credit. I just think that's going to be what we see consistently out of Trae Young, is we're going to have games where he looks absolutely horrible. He's shooting 0 for 10 from 3, and he's turning the ball over 7 times, and he only has 5 assists, and he's a detriment to his team. I don't think he's going to be consistent where Colin Sexton, yes, he might not have those assist numbers, he might not have those rebound numbers, but he's still going to be able to drive to the hole. He's still going to be able to draw contact. He's still going to be going to the line. I still think he can be a guy that can get you, anywhere to 17 points a game to at least 9 points a game. And I think he's consistently going to be in that range, getting you those points, driving you to the bucket. The biggest thing, though, is how well will he fit into a facilitator role? Because that's the biggest thing the Cavs are losing, is LeBron James. They're losing that facilitator that they've had for the past 3 years. Now the question is, when will Colin Sexton even start? Because some people might think George Hill will be the starter for them. I just think ultimately you drafted this kid so high in Colin Sexton. He does have the physical tools to at least hang in the NBA, and you need to at least try him at some point, because the Cavs might be trying to win, but again, Colin Sexton is more explosive than George Hill. George Hill is safer. Colin Sexton does have that next level ability, or we at least think he does, with him being drafted that high. So I think Colin Sexton is a guy that he might not have those passes. He might not have those highlight reel plays like Trae Young, but I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be at least more consistent, and also I think he's going to be a better defender. Trae Young, again, we've seen him struggle. He doesn't have a long wingspan. He's not that quick going left to right, and even staying in front of his defenders. Colin Sexton at least has that body. And some people bring up the fact that Josh Hart dropped, 36 on him in Summer League? Yeah. It was Summer League, and also Josh Hart is 4 years older than Colin Sexton. Colin Sexton isn't going to be a great NBA defender, but he's going to be better than Trae Young. I think that just Colin Sexton is going to be more consistent, and that's why I have him one spot above. But I think the rookies are going to be interesting to at least see.
Well, and the last thing I wanted to kind of mention with him is the thing that Trae Young will have to get used to that Colin Sexton won't, is I feel like Trae Young, when we were watching him in some of the Summer League games he wasn't good at, it's like, I have to do it all on my own. I'm going to dribble in on this guy. Oh, it's not going to work. I'm going to dribble back out. And it's like, you do know you can pass the ball, right? And it's like in the draft process, we're all like, man, he's got such great vision. Look at this. It's like, use that. Drive in. The defense is going to come to you because of who you are. Pass it off to the corner. Pass it in down low. Trust your teammates, because I know you couldn't do that at Oklahoma.
Yeah, it's something that, again, even on this Atlanta Hawks team, how much will he be able to trust his teammates as well? John Collins obviously looked fantastic in Summer League. He had a really good rookie year as well. But with that, I mean, he's not a guy that's going to be shooting on the perimeter.
You got Blazemore and Prince really out there. And then, of course, Kevin, right? Herter. Yep.
Well, and Herter's going to be at least joining him. He wasn't in the Summer League because he hurt his wrist. You also got Amari Spellman out there. They got Blazemore as well, or our buddy Kent. And obviously the guy that they just drafted, in Trae Young. I don't know why I mentioned. I'm trying to think of. Didn't they get a power forward too as well?
Yeah, they got Amari Spellman.
I mentioned him. I think they got another big guy too. I can't think of it.
They've got Dwayne Dedman.
He's more of a pick and roll
He's
guy.
a center.
Anyways, I don't know. Whatever. The Hawks are the Hawks. They're not going to be a good team.
They're not going to be a good team, but they're going to be a fun team to watch.
That's true.
Which will be better than last year.
But again, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Trae Young and Colin Sexton. I think they're guys that are never going to be able to.
I got it. Jay Lynn. They got Jeremy Lin behind them.
That's who it was.
That's
Yeah.
the big
But
man.
and it's going to be interesting how they at least Well, no, not the big man. I was.
The big name.
Spellman was the big man
Yeah.
that I was thinking of, but
Yeah.
I was trying to think of the other person that they brought in.
Yep.
Jalen was the other person.
Good mentor.
So it's good mentor, and maybe they will show spots where, hey, we'll work Trae off ball, use his speed, get him around screens, and then have Jalen set him up. That was the guy I was thinking of.
We're talking these rookies, and I'm looking at Pat Bev, and obviously the guy right behind him biting at the bit. We saw an excellent summer league performance out of Shea. And do you think that there's any risk to Pat Bev ever coming off the bench this year?
That was something we talked about, was the fact that because we were putting together all the starting point guards, and it was Pat Bev or Shea, and you were adamant that Pat Bev is the starter.
He's a much better player,
But Shea was so disgusting. And also, the one thing about Shea is that he's so big. I mean, he's 6'6". He's got a long wingspan. Obviously, he's a rookie, so he at least plays into this. Pat Bev obviously had his injury last year, and that's going to be something that we're going to watch and monitor. But Pat Bev's a guy that is at least solid, more than solid defensively, but he's also solid offensively. He can shoot from the outside.
Right.
But I think that Shea at least can possibly end up being a good defender, not probably to the level of Pat Bev right away, but he can be a good defender. And then offensively, I think he does a little bit more because of his ability to drive, because of his length. He's going to be able to pass a little bit more. And I think if Shea really starts to ball out and Pat Bev starts to show his age, I think that's where we might see Shea overtake Pat Bev, because also, where is this Clipper team going?
That's where I would go.
Is this going to be a team that's going to be in the playoffs, or is this the team that, come All-Star break, this is going to be a team that is, maybe 11th in the Western Conference? Yeah. They seller's market, and then also, do you want to get these young guys time? If you're losing, then Shea might overtake that starting position. What do you think, Ricky?
With me, I was on the other side of, I threw out there which one is it going to be? But I was leaning towards, if it was me to make the decision, I would have put Shea as the starting point guard. And the reason why is I kind of look at Pat Bev on this Clipper team and kind of compare him to where Rondo is in his career right now. Rondo comes onto a team. I'm not the starting point guard. Well, the Bulls he was, because the Bulls were trash when we signed him.
The Pelicans
but
he was.
For example, the team he was on, or he's signing with right now, it's like, you know what? You've got Lonzo. I'm going to come in. I'm going to do what I do best to help this team win, but I don't have to be that starter that starts the game. I just need my minutes and use me where I am. And I feel like Pat Bev, he's not a guy that's going to get you a ton of points. He's not going to get you assists. He's a just 40% shooter across the board. But the thing that he specializes in is his defense. And I feel like that's why, for me, this year, we're going to see Shea will take over the starting mantle, and Pat Bev will be, all right, I'm the guy off the bench that they use when they need someone to play tough defense and use that role for this team.
I don't majorly agree with he can't get you assists.
I mean, he averaged about, he averaged like 3 last year. I know,
he
but
played
like
11
the year
games
before, he averaged about 4 when he played a fuller season, where like a guy like Rondo's getting 8 assists.
Okay,
per
but
game.
I'm talking at least.
Exactly.
But we can't compare those two skill sets.
I'm just saying, with me, I feel like his biggest skill set is defense, and how much are you going to be like, man, we got to have him in that starting lineup just because of his defense, or will it be, hey, we need Shea out there because of what he brings all around, but then we can move Pat Bev into the lineup?
I think the thing with Pat Bev is that he's so decent all around, where Shea is just more of, Shea's not going to be as consistent as Pat Bev. Also, Pat Bev is a guy that, yes, he might not light up the stat sheet, but he's a guy that moves the ball so efficiently. He's a smart player. So he's not going to be a guy that's a major detriment. I mean, looking at the last 3 healthy years for him, shot 41% from the field, 37.9% from 3. He averaged 3.7 assists, and that's on 1.4 turnovers. So he's a guy that's going to move the ball efficiently and not turn the ball over. With Shea, we've seen this with rookies time and time again, is they try to fit into spots that worked in college. They try to do too much for their team. Pat Bev, again, if this is a team that's going to be in the playoffs, he's going to bring consistency to their lineup. He's going to bring smart basketball to their lineup. And I think that's something that, again, a Jerry West team and a Doc Rivers team will love. And I think that's why at least Pat Bev's going to start this season. And if he continues to do that, if he gives them what he needs, I don't think he's going to lose it. But if they start losing, and he might start getting floated out in trade rumors, or again, they start losing, they want to see what Shea can do, then that's when Shea ends up taking over for him.
You still got Milos on that team too. You got depth.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with Milos though.
He got hurt.
Injured, yeah.
And yeah,
and I think there was also rumors that he didn't end up signing and that he did sign.
Yeah, that'll be a toss-up to see how they manage that backcourt. They got a lot of guards.
Yeah.
In the Clippers.
So and Milos is a guy that again
he started 36 games for him last year. Obviously, Pat out, and
he's a great passer himself as well.
Phenomenal.
So and they still have Lou Will, so a lot of guards on that team that is gonna at least be a detriment to Shea Gilgeous right away because he might not be getting the playing time that he deserves, or at least he might not getting the playing time that he needs to grow. But again, he's still 19 years old. What I want to talk about next though is the sophomores on this list. We got Dennis Smith Jr., De'Aaron Fox, and good old Frank Nikitalina of the New York Knicks. These three guys, not too farly separated. Dennis Smith leading the pack at 22, De'Aaron Fox at 24, and Frank at 27. Is it too low that we have Frank this low behind De'Aaron Fox and behind Dennis Smith Jr.?
I don't think so. The problem is we don't really know what the Knicks are doing yet with their backcourt because they have three guys who could play point guard. They've got three guys who can play shooting guard, and really nothing's been locked in. We went with Frank because that seemed like the best possible lineup for them.
Well, I think that Frank is for sure starting. They're not going to start Frank, right? So it just depends on whether he's going to be at the 1 or the 2. And then we look at least the 2 guard position. They have Tim Hardaway, they have Courtney Lee, and if they start Tim Hardaway, or if they start Courtney Lee, then that's going to push Tim Hardaway to the 3. But then again, they have that idea of Kevin Knox or Tim Hardaway. So then if they go with Tim Hardaway at the 3, then they go with Kevin Knox at the 4, and then they go with Enes Kanter at the 5. So it really is dependent on who they put at the 2. Now, if they put Frank at the 2, then that means they're putting Tim Hardaway at the 3, then Kevin Knox at the 4, then Kanter at the 5. That means they're starting Trey Burke, who's
he
very
played really well last year,
but he's very ball dominant. He screams 6-man to me, like a Lou Williams ball dominant guy.
He does to me as well, but he was efficient.
And then Moutier's there as well. So I just think that Frank is a for sure starter. It depends on the 1 and 2. I think it just fits their lineup better if he is at the 1.
And if you're reading into the hype book, he grew another inch this offseason. if not 1, then 2 inches. So he's like 6'6", 6'6.5".
He grew
now.
a third arm.
His shooting again, it looks smooth. It looks better, and he's actually lifting weights for the first time in his life. So I expect to see a good growth out of Frank. Like, I'm putting him low, but I'm still a buyer on Frank. I still think he's going to be a legitimate NBA player because the defense we saw out of him last year means that he has a future in the NBA long term.
I think that's the one thing, Ricky, is that you look at Dennis Smith Jr., you look at De'Aaron Fox, and you look at Frank Nikitalina. Dennis Smith and De'Aaron Fox are better offensively than Frank is right now. But Frank probably arguably has the best skill set, at least on one side of the ball, and that is defensively. He's a better defender than De'Aaron is offensively, and then better than Dennis Smith is offensively as well.
I feel like for this, just with all of them, is if I had to rank these 3 sophomores, I'm most excited about Dennis Smith this year because of what that Dallas team could be. He gets a guy like Luka to play along with him. He gets DeAndre Jordan down low, and Dirk coming back for another year. I'm excited for this Mavericks team just to see what they can do. Then, like the Kings and De'Aaron Fox, I think De'Aaron Fox will be better, but I don't know what to expect from this Kings team each year because it's like, ooh, we got so much talent, and then they're a top 10 pick in the draft. And then with Frank, I feel like with the Knicks, I just don't know what this team is going to be after this year. Like if we fast forward to the end, we're starting the rumors of Kyrie wants to come to New York, and he'll team up with Jimmy Butler. And for me, I'm low on Frank now because without guys like that, I don't necessarily love Frank being my starter. I think he'll, at this point, benefit more from, let's say they do bring in a Jimmy Butler, and it's like, hey, Jimmy can start. I can be on the bench.
What about him? Do you not like him being your starter?
Like what you were saying, the main skill set that I think of is kind of what we were talking about with Pat Bev, but on a lesser scale of it's his defense. His defense is what I think of right now, and I feel like at this point, while he develops everything else, it would be wiser to have someone else that could be in the starting lineup ahead of him, and he could come off the bench to help the team.
But arguably with Frank, again, he's only 20 years old. Just turned 20
There's
7 days
still
ago.
time for him to develop.
But I mean, even then, with his offensive game, he wasn't a great scorer. Still shot 31% from 3, but that's on 2 attempts per game. It was nothing crazy. 72% from the line. So he definitely needs to work on it. It looks smoother, like you said, but still, it's different when you're getting in games. But even then, at least moving the ball, he was fairly decent at it, 3.2 assists per game compared to 1.7 turnovers per game. I think that, again, you can't give up on him too early, and I think he's a guy that if Jimmy Butler comes, it doesn't mean he can't play the one. It's just dependent on where he ends up figuring out his spot, because they're not sure if he's going to be if they're not sure if he's going to be a 2 guard or if he's going to be a 1 guard because of his ability to either pass and score. Because if he can't do that, he still does have a spot in a starting lineup, I believe, because of his defense.
And I just think, like you said, he is still young. I'm not saying, like, give up on Frank, but I'm thinking in the mindset of if Jimmy comes or Kyrie comes too. And with me, that would be maybe a better situation for Frank because, like, okay, I don't have to have the pressure of starting. I can just kind of develop my game, help this team off the bench. And, like, I sit there and think, like, if Kyrie and Jimmy came to this Knicks team, that would be a good thing that, hey, we can give Jimmy a rest now, still put in Frank maybe at that 2 in some situations, and not lose that defense that Jimmy Butler brings to the team.
To be fair, he only started 9 games last year.
Yeah.
He's not he's so young and he's so fresh that, like, you need time. So I don't know. The whole New York conversation's another thing with Jimmy and Kyrie. That's another.
Well, we got to see what Fizdale's like in his first year too.
Yeah.
And at least giving some numbers to this conversation, Frank last year had an offensive rating of 89 and a defensive rating of 112 with a defensive win share of 1.1 and a defensive box score plus minus of negative 0.5. So again, the numbers aren't really great for him, but again, he was on a bad defensive team and still showed one-on-one that he was a great defender. Compare that to De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox had an offensive rating of 94, clearly better there. Obviously, he was more efficient, was able to move the ball more, had games where he showed his offensive ability.
Yeah.
But he was a worse defender, 1.1 defensive shares for De'Aaron, which is the same as Frank. And De'Aaron had a higher defensive rating at 113, but also had a worse defensive box score of negative 1.5. And then Dennis Smith had an offensive rating of 93, so a little bit lower than De'Aaron. Had a lower defensive rating, though, at 110, so technically he was a better defender. Also had a better win share of 1.7 and a defensive box score plus minus of negative 0.7. So technically, by the numbers, Dennis Smith Jr. was the best defender out of all of these, and that's why Dennis Smith is higher than De'Aaron Fox and Frank Ntilikina because of what he also brings offensively, and then also with the hype that Ricky said.
He really
having
turned it
DeAndre
on late
Jordan,
in the year too.
Having Harrison Barnes, having Luka Doncic around him, it's definitely gonna be something interesting to see. All right, closing in on the final minutes on this one. Any other guys you want to bring up? Either Brandon Knight with his injury, Alfred Payton on the new team, DJ Augustine if you want to.
Sorry.
Who else is popping off the picture?
DeJounte Murray is the guy for me. Like he's the guy who he got handed the keys last year, and he is now the starter. Didn't he get like defensive player?
I think he was second team
defensive player. Like that's fantastic. He is something weird because he is a point guard who is long and rebounds. And his outside shot needs help. He's been working on it. It's getting better, but like he needs help from the outside. His mid-range, his floaters, his layups, solid. So like he's a guy who defensively is there. Offensively, if he continues to grow his game out, I'm really going to be interested in his pairing with DeMar DeRozan and seeing how that opens up this team. I think that's the big thing because last year he didn't get to play with Kawhi. He was playing a lot with LaMarcus Aldridge as his number one offensive weapon. So I want to see if he can really become the facilitator because last year I think like Paul Gasol was their leader in assists, like something ridiculous like that. So
well, and I mean, you also had like Tony Parker taking minutes away from him as well at the point guard position.
Right.
He's not there anymore. He's now in Charlotte.
Yeah, it's so weird.
And you're right. Second team: Joel Embiid, Draymond Green, Al Horford, DeJounte Murray, and Jimmy Butler.
So good.
Their second team.
That's some good company.
It's some great company, and you're also behind guys like Rocco and Victor Oladipo and Drew. It's just weird seeing guys like Joel Embiid, Draymond, Al Horford, and Jimmy Butler below guys like Rocco and Victor Oladipo.
Hey, respect defense.
Also, Victor Oladipo is most improved player. Nothing too shocking. DeJounte's an interesting one. Brandon Knight, though, I had him.
He's the one I was going to bring up.
Yeah, I had him. You had him the lowest actually out of all of us. You had him at 30. I had him at 29. Dave had him at 24. Obviously, this is a guy that's been consistently injured. Obviously, he has the talent, but he can't stay healthy. That's why I put him that low because he might be a guy that can't really shake off that rust, Ricky, and then one of these young guys like an Okubo, or they might slide Dev Book to the one, might take over and get rid of a starting position.
I'm going to be completely honest, and Suns fans might get mad at me, but when we were coming in with these rankings, before we kind of solidified who was going to be where, my first thought was, and this is also more of a thought for the end of the year, I was like, just put Okubo as the starter. Because, like, to me, he's never there. I know he played 54 games last year, but it's like he hasn't played more than...
No, he did not.
He played 54 games the year before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he took all of last year off.
Last game he played was February 15th, 2017.
He hasn't played 70-plus games since, 2013, 2014? So it's like, for me, I look at it and it's like, this is the player that's like, just show me what you got. Like, I can't put you dead last because, or I could put you dead last.
He did.
And that's mainly why. Well, I couldn't remember if I put Elfrid Payton below him. But, like, for me, it's show me what you got. Like, you were...
Show me a move.
If you were the same player you were, like, your second, third, like, player in the league or year in the league, it'd be different. But right now, show me that you can be that Brandon Knight on the Suns team. Or, because like you said, it's every single year it's like, oh, are they going to trade Brandon Knight? Are they going to get this contract off their team? I don't know. I still think we're going to talk this year where Okubo will take the job from him, and then we're talking about Brandon Knight trades that won't happen.
You're entirely too positive on Okubo. He looked incredibly raw in Summer League. I don't think there's a chance in hell he starts for this team this year.
I'm saying by the end of the year.
My statement still stands. Everything of this offseason has been Brandon Knight gaining incredible shape, best shape of his career. He's been positive in the community. All these goodwill stories about him. I think
I'm so sick of hearing,
back.
he's in the best shape of his career. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what
I know.
shape. J.J. Watt's in the best shape of any human ever, and he's consistently getting injured.
I don't care. I want to believe in the hype of Brandon Knight because
I do too. I don't want this guy to be injured.
2015-2016 season, he was putting up like just shy of 20 points, 5 assists, 4 boards. He was doing everything for them, and that's what I want to see. Is like he never really got like that was his one chance to shine, and I would love to see someone like him, another offensive threat who can facilitate next to Dev Book. Those two as a backcourt, a healthy Brandon Knight and Devin Booker could be something amazing. Like that's how the Suns team makes the next jump.
And I'm rooting for the kid again. I mean, he's only I think he's
27. He's 26, 240
going to be 27
days,
in December, December 2nd. But you look at his seasons from ages 22, 23, 24. Over those 3 years, he averaged 18 points per game, 5.1 assists, 3.7 rebounds, 3 turnovers, which obviously he was a young player that's going to come down, or you hope at least it's going to come down, and shooting 42% from the field and 35% from 3. So this kid is talented. I think he was also like 3rd in his high school recruiting class as well. 4th, according to Basketball Reference. He was 4th. Behind Harrison Barnes, Kyrie Irving, and Jared Sullinger. So I mean, this is a guy that's extremely talented, and he's just been robbed of injuries. So hopefully, he's at least being able to be healthy, and then we could at least trash him if he's bad.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know, I would rather have him be on the court playing and then trash him than rather being like, all right, what if?
Yeah, I think the likely thing is if he stumbles or fails out the gates or gets injured again, God forbid, like Dev Book probably slides to the 1 in my mind. So
and that's something that Igor has said that Devin Book is a 2 or D Book is a 2.
Right.
So we'll see what happens with that.